in mantra 6, that which is imperceptible, ungraspable, unlineal, without caste, without eye, ear, without hand, foot, eternal, of manifold expression, all-pervading, extremely subtle, imperishable, that the wise perceive everywhere as the source of all creation. So he gives this long list of pointers, and let's just go into it here. So conditioned consciousness we can grasp because it's happening right now. All we need to do is pay attention to the current experience, and it is conditioned. There's a subject-object relationship. There are qualities, properties, forms, functions. It's changing. How do you describe the unconditioned consciousness? The only way that it can be pointed at, really, is using the language of negation. So have a look at the list that is presented in this verse. Imperceptible. So it's not perceptible. It's not graspable. It's not lineal. It does not have a caste, eyes and ears. It doesn't have hand and foot. Even eternal. Eternal means not defined in time. So all of these ways of pointing at the unconditioned consciousness are done through negation. And that is one of the principal practices described in Vedanta philosophy. Neti neti, not this, not this. Whatever I'm experiencing, it's not the unconditioned consciousness. It's not the true reality. Not this, not this. And it's an important practice because when we have experiences that are blissful, we might think, this is the true wisdom I've been looking for. No, not this, not this. And in fact, in the Ch.I Upanishad, in the first verse of part 2, he says, if you think, I know well, you know perhaps very little indeed. The form of Brahman that you have known relates to that of the gods. So what he's saying there, and the way that the Swami often interprets this verse, is to say that the Guru has just finished this amazing exposition of the reality, and he sees the students lit up with that pinnacle of understanding and devotion, and they may be thinking, this is it. He says, no. If you think I know well, then you know very little indeed, because it's not something that you think. It's not something that you cognize. It's something that is beyond thinking, beyond cognition. We use thinking to get there, but where we're going is beyond thinking, which is just the old pole vault example that we're familiar with. You use the pole to get to the top, but where you're going is beyond the pole. So the question that you might ask with regards to the pole vault example is, well then, okay, when it comes to the pole vault, I understand exactly what that means. I have to stick it in the ground, let it bend and launch me up, and then I throw it away. Okay, I get it. But what do you mean that I have to let go of thought? How do I let go of thought? How do I push it away? Because the moment I try to push thought away, I'm doing it from the perspective of I'm trying to push thought away, which is just another thought. I'm always just turning from one thought, and I find that I'm in another one. I'm in opposition to one thought, so I push it away, and in pushing it away, I have become something else, which is also in opposition. So it seems like everywhere I turn, I'm bound to be in this subject-object relationship. So the notion of letting go of thought, it starts with understanding. It starts with an understanding of what it means to be captured by thought, or the other word that we often use here is to be involved in our thoughts. And so we take that understanding of involvement versus objectivity, and we blend it with our desire for the truth, and then we blend in a practice. And the practice that we are really looking to become proficient at is just spotting those times where we are involved in our thoughts, or when we are captured by our thoughts. And the moment you recognize I'm captured in thought, you have that ability, based on the knowledge that you've understood, to step back and simply see it for what it is. So it's not so much that you do something to let go of thought. What you're doing is doing less. Witness or observe the nature of the mind and its expression of ego. And when you see it functioning in that way, the involvement, the attachment, the knowledge that you have reflects, if you like, onto the mind, onto the ego, and it just starts to behave. And so I won't go through this list. We've gone through lists like this plenty of times. But the way that we would normally treat a list like this if we were studying it is to go through each aspect. What does imperceptible mean? Okay, I can't perceive it through the senses. Ungraspable. Okay, so I can't grasp it with the intellect. Unlineal. There's no lineage. At the beginning of the text, we had a lineage starting with Brahma and then the lineage down. So the knowledge of self isn't an effect of a prior cause, etc. So we would go through, understand them, and then go from understanding and let that naturally become contemplation. So we start with the reading of it, go to our gross intellectual understanding of it, and then move into a sort of a more contemplative frame of mind. In this first section, he discards neti. It's not this, it's not perceptible, it's not graspable, it's not lineal, it doesn't have caste, doesn't have sense organs, doesn't have organs of action, not defined with time. Manifold expression. This relates to the second aspect of this mantra. Whatever you are experiencing is consciousness. All-pervading, extremely subtle and imperishable. So when we talk about something being subtle rather than gross, you can think of that which is gross as depending on the subtle for its existence. The subtle is that which is necessary for the gross to exist. And so we might think of a chronology of action. In order for me to have a desire for something, there must be an underlying thought. So the thought is necessary for the existence of the desire. Which means then that the thought is subtler than desire. So when he says extremely subtle, what he's pointing at here is to say it is the thing which permits all existence. Anything that you can point at and you say it exists, whether it's a physical object, whether it's a feeling, whether it's a concept, whether it is your sense of being this self, whatever it is, anything that you can point at, it depends upon something else for its existence. There is a fundamental reality which permits and allows the existence of anything that does exist. This is what he means by extremely subtle, that there is nothing more subtle than it. He says that the wise perceive everywhere as the source of all creation. So it touches on what we were talking about earlier with regards to extremely subtle. The higher knowledge is beyond the contents of consciousness. So the contents of consciousness refers obviously to the various objects of experience, physical objects, emotional ideas. These are all objects of consciousness. The sense of being oneself, the sense of being a self, of being a subject, that's also within the contents of your consciousness. Higher knowledge exists beyond all of those, without quality, property, form, function, or change. And so when he talks about the source of creation, the thing upon which your experience depends, it is the thing from which all experience emerges. So your conditioned consciousness, or even the word your is a little bit wrong here. So conditioned consciousness, you can think of existing in the pure consciousness and as the pure consciousness. Okay, so how can we understand this a little bit? Go to the analogy of the waking and the dream. Everything in the dream exists in the mind. Everything in the dream is made up of the mind. And so you are in your dream. And when you reflect upon your dream once you've woken up in the morning, you can say that that lion that I saw in my dream, it was my own mind. It's my mind existing as a lion, and it existed in my mind. So in the same way, you take a look at what you're experiencing now. It's existing as consciousness, capital C. And it's existing within consciousness, capital C. So it is the source of creation in that sense. It is the higher knowledge is, if you like, the medium in which all experience exists and is sustained. And it is, if you like, the material out of which our experience is made. All this is nothing other than consciousness. And how can we start to move ourselves towards that in a contemplative way? Negate. It's not perceptible, it's not graspable, it's not lineal, etc.